Hello, I'm David Cohen, CEO of Fluence, and this is Fluence Unfiltered. I'm here with Casey Rivero and Ryley Leech, cannabis solution architects for Fluence, and you're watching the final installment of our series on building for success and achieving sustainable growth. I'd like to leave our audience with a few final insights from you both. It seems like everybody's racing to, it's 12 weeks, it's 10 weeks, it's 8 weeks, is that sustainable? I mean, it seems like it's like cultivar independent, but it would appear to me that it is really cultivar specific. And
well, it is. I mean, to look at all of the cannabis genome and say, well, we want everything to finish in 56 days or 65 days within a shorter than 10-week time cycle is
at 30+%.
Yeah, 30+% with 3 to 4% terpenes. It's like it doesn't happen. And so in a lot of facilities we go into, we'll see crops that should go 10, 11, 12 weeks that are just getting chopped at 9. It's like, well, we're leaving a lot of yield on the table, and we're also leaving like the last few weeks is really when the full chemical expression of the plant flourishes, right? And so that's where we're looking for the perfect harvest date. Well, if we're taking a 11-week strain and cutting it at 9 weeks, well, we don't have that experience of what that full 11 weeks can do. And even further, I mean, there's so many cannabis genetics that on the sativa side that just go 14, 16, 18, 20 weeks, right? That would never fit into a commercial cannabis production model, and that's why I think you see some of a little bit of pushback and some issues with the legal market is that everybody's kind of doing the same thing when it comes to cultivars. We're looking at the cookie strains or the seed junkie strains or the connected or compound genetics, and we're just really everybody's trying to grow the best of these 20 strains that are currently exciting, but there's so much more out there. And I think as cannabis starts to progress as an industry, we'll start to see kind of the Bordeaux model, if you will, which is like, hey, yeah, this cultivar takes 15 weeks to grow. And because of that, it has all these different unique compounds that you can't get out of these other ones, and it's going to cost more for the consumer level, because just like we have, wineries have limited acreage. Well, you've got limited square footage in your space, and if you decide that you're going to plant something that's going to take almost 2 times as long as another cultivar, well, one, the market has to be mature enough to want to pay for that and to understand the value of that. But it's mostly in the experience of the plant, right? I mean, I think that's what draws most cannabis consumers to cannabis, is that it's a great experience within the plant. And I think right now we're looking at a very narrow view of all of cannabis experience.
Do you think that's a race for efficiency? It's a race to get on Instagram and hold up a huge bud and say this is 30%, or
I think
a little bit of
all the above,
ignorance, not in a negative way, but you just don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
I think it's marketing towards what people are allowed to do right now, and that's been the challenge in the industry itself, is that the plant itself has been regulated with a gigantic misunderstanding, and we see this all over the globe too. It's not just North America, laws separating a CBD side of the plant to a THC side of the plant. We discovered THC originally, and that's really what we thought cannabis was. It was just THC, and that's what all the drug tests were for, and that's what everything. So they emphasized this specific molecule for a long time. And unfortunately, it's still really emphasized, to the point to where that's what's driving people's sales in certain markets. You can have a beautiful genetic, beautiful terpene expression, grows an amazing plant, but if it doesn't hit a specific THC amount, it won't sell in that market. Yeah. And that's a really unfortunate thing that we're seeing right now with this plant, is because of the regulations and because of the hype on what THC assumingly does. We've seen this kind of, unhealthy, evolution of what the plant can do.
Pushing higher and higher THC levels with less terpenes and less experience of the plant overall, and kind of dulls down, what cannabis could be. And, markets like Canada and even California are kind of beholden to, is it 30% plus? Is it purple? Is it that? Where none of those things really matter, right? I mean, there's been plenty of discussion about the Entourage Effect and how all these secondary metabolites come together to give you the experience that is cannabis. And part of what I used to do in terms of cannabis extraction has pushed some of that away, where it's like, well, cannabis distillate's 99% THC, and here you go, and
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and it's
Yeah.
you know, it costs $10 to get on, you know, a gram of, and it's just that side of the industry, I think, is going to mature. And as we've always been in these positions, we're constantly battling to educate the consumer base on what we think they should think is important.
And each market seems to have its own, that's the difference of the North American market compared to the world market. We have essentially, 50 different countries,
Yeah.
with their own rules, their own laws, their own thoughts, and everything, kind of like we mentioned earlier, but the biggest challenge right now that we're seeing is just the fact that, some states will allow a specific thing but not allow a specific thing,
Right.
So it really hinders the ability for that industry's growth.
What's coming in 10 years, you think? Fast forward, is this all Coke, Pepsi, and Pfizer, or is what do you think it looks like?
I think everybody for years has been, pointing at the tobacco companies as this is their next foray, right? Or pointing at the pharmaceutical companies. Who knows really what's going to happen from the big players until federal legalization comes in. They don't want to touch it, right?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be larger outdoor, cultivation looking for kind of THC as a commodity. The ability to make distillate and concentrates and edibles at a really large scale for a low cost by cultivating outdoors or in greenhouses or areas where the climate is great. And then you've got the other angle of not necessarily synthetic cannabinoids, but cannabinoids that are being grown on other biomass, which you've seen with algae and other groups experimenting on that. I think that's all going to push THC to the commodity side. And then there's going to be, I think, a really strong emergence of craft, top quality flower that's just going to keep separating themselves from each other, right? Right now, this market is because of the way it works in the States, is that you go into a dispensary and you have the Bud Lights, and then you have the, your porter that you aged in an oak barrel, right? Like you've got all the different things in front of a consumer who may not be educated enough to tell the difference between two. As the industry grows, consumer education is going to go up, and we're going to see kind of, I think, a division of all these groups just starting to separate from each other.
And the growers, they're going to have to figure out how to stay ahead of the curve a bit, right?
It's adapting.
I think it's what you do as a grower, especially in cannabis. I mean, when you own one of these businesses, you get an update every 2 to 5 days about here's how the laws changed. Okay, so our packaging now it can't be size 8 font, and has to be size 8.5 font, and has to look like this. And so the more that you have experience with that, you're just constantly just figuring out how to pivot this way, the other way, and the federal legalization and stuff will certainly be another challenge to overcome. I'm sure there's going to be some things in there that are going to change the way people do things. But if cannabis growers, they are resilient, and they'll make it happen.
They figured it out.
They figured it out.
Stay alive.
Yeah.
This has been our final installment of our series on building for success and achieving sustainable growth. Thank you for watching. To be alerted when our next series of episodes goes live, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Until then.